Okay, our gospel reading for today is only 7 verses long, but there is so much going on. It's amazing. The angle or the lens that we're going to approach this through for this time is giving. How does the crowd give? How does Jesus give? How do we give? We have the various people in the scene: Jesus and his disciples, the crowd, and Bartimaeus, son of Timaeus, and Timaeus meaning honor, ironically, sitting by the side of the road, begging after having lost his sight somehow. So, how does Jesus give, or what does Jesus give? Well, the big answer beyond this story is, of course, everything. Jesus died for us all and became human in the first place. There's a concept called kenosis, which means emptying out, and we often use this to describe Jesus, who is God, right? Second person of the Trinity, one God, but became human for our sake, emptying himself out for the sake of the world, right? Pouring himself out for the sake of the world. Philippians chapter 2 has a great passage that talks about this. And we can think of this in a really big way. But there are also these examples of Jesus doing that same thing in very almost ordinary ways, right? Over and over again, Jesus uses the power he has in various places to bring someone who is on the margin back to the center, elevating and empowering them in their lives. Of all the people in the scene, it's really Bartimaeus who's in charge, because Jesus gives him that power. Really, Bartimaeus is in charge of the scene. Let me read it again and try to see if you can hear that. Jesus and his disciples and a large crowd were leaving Jericho. Bartimaeus, son of Timaeus, a blind beggar, was sitting by the roadside. When he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to shout and to say, "Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me." Many sternly ordered him to be quiet, but he cried out even more loudly, "Son of David, have mercy on me." Jesus stood still and said, "Call him here." And they called the blind man, saying to him, "Take heart, get up, he's calling you." So, throwing off his cloak, Bartimaeus sprang up and came to Jesus. Then Jesus said to him, "What do you want me to do for you?" The blind man said to him, "My teacher, let me see again." Jesus said to him, "Go, your faith has made you well." Immediately he regained his sight and followed him on the way. Bartimaeus is in charge of this scene. He's in charge of the scene because Jesus gives him that power. Jesus uses his own power, really, to give Bartimaeus authority and agency over what happens next. Really, like, to be brought from the margins, literally from the side of the road, to following them on the way. And Bartimaeus gets to do that, to say that. He has agency over what happens next, what happens in Bartimaeus' own life. So how does the crowd give then? They seem to give as they're told to, right? They give when they're told to and how they're told to by the authority that they recognize or the person that they want to impress, in this case, Jesus, right? And maybe, to be fair, maybe they have given in other ways that they want to, right? They may have even tossed a few coins onto Bartimaeus' cloak, but then, in the scene they tell him, and maybe even thinking that it's helpful to be telling him to be quiet, right? The noise that he's making disrupts things, and maybe a little bit like if he wants more, he should really listen to them and to what they say. They're the people that he'll be asking from tomorrow, right? Ugh, there's a power play or a system a bit exposed there. Jesus's power play is quite different. What Jesus does shows us kind of step 2 of how we can help or how we could give or approach people, or would, expect people to approach us. We often think of the golden rule, right? Treat others as you want to be treated. This kind of models something else or something more, perhaps, rather than imagine what I would want done and doing that for someone else. This recognizes that I am not that someone else, right? Rather than superimposing my wishes and values on them, I need to instead see that they are a different person and treat them not how I would want, but how they would want to be treated. Jesus asks, what do you want me to do for you? This is one kind of really big detail here because, Bartimaeus could be seen as someone who just needs healing, right? Blind and then regaining his sight, which is problematic at best and reveals a very real shortcoming in our values in society and culture. But Bartimaeus isn't assumed to need that by Jesus, right? He's allowed to articulate for himself what he wants. Jesus treats him as one with autonomy and value, and so Jesus gives him the agency to say for himself what he would like. How do we give? I think most of the time our attitude is, yes, absolutely, we should help people and we need to give to others. But we can, kind of sometimes, possibly turn into the crowd, help in the way that we want to, right? And then hopefully maybe the noise of the issue goes away. Maybe even trying to quiet things down when the noise disrupts us. Rather than working on the issue, we try to work on the noise. I know I've seen that in the news. But treat others as you would want to be treated. Would you want to be asked and listened to? Or do you prefer assumptions when people think that they know best what you need? Right? Now, approaching it that way does mean that you have to talk and listen and be willing to enter fully into that dialogue and honor those answers. Honor. Timaeus. Interesting. Bartimaeus is in charge of the scene because Jesus gives him that power, that honor. Who would God give power to in our world? Who should be in charge of the scene, the conversation, when we think about how to help someone else? How do we give? And even more than that, how does that affect how other people might give? There's another kind of big development or detail in this particular passage, and that's that Jesus' treatment of Bartimaeus changes the crowd's treatment of him too. They go very, very suddenly from, shh, be quiet, to, hey you, Jesus wants to talk to you. Not only do they now see him, but they remember his name. And, I bet they think twice next time they encounter someone like this. How do we give? Treat others as you would want to be treated. That's an amazing first step. It's a step toward empathy, toward imagining yourself in someone else's situation and broadening your perspective. Treat others as they want to be treated is kind of the next step or the next level, right? Goes from what do I want to do for you to what do you want me to do for you? There's a huge difference in those questions and approaches. Bartimaeus' story reminds us to evaluate how we use the power we have to make a difference and what kind of difference we make. Bartimaeus goes from sitting beside the road to joining the group. He follows Jesus, presumably with the disciples and the large crowd on the way. I wonder what those traveling conversations were like and how this whole scene just transformed everything for everyone in it. Something to think about this week.